Hi pals, welcome back to my channel. I really hope you're finding this series useful and enjoyable and using some of these tips to kind of practice self-love in your own life. Obviously, everyone's situation is completely different, and I actually wrote a blog post on like one of the first days of this series all about kind of self-love in different like groups of people and different demographics, so have a read of that if you're interested. But with different life situations, it becomes easier and harder to love yourself and to kind of find that self-love. So if you've been watching my videos for a little while, you'll know that I am unemployed, and I have been for 7 months now. Actually nearly 8 months, so that is a long time. That's more than half a year. That's just like sinking into me now. That is a long time, and this has had a massive impact on my self-love and self-esteem and self-worth. Everyone knows that applying for jobs and being unemployed is hard. I was never expecting it to be easy, but there are some ways that it has affected my life and my self-love in ways that were unexpected to me. The biggest one, I think, is getting rejections from interviews. So I've had quite a lot of interviews. Quite good at getting the interviews, but none of them have landed yet. They usually give you some kind of explanation like, this guy just had more experience, or you came second, you were really close, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. So if you look at this from like a psychological point of view, like I do a lot of the time. I have a degree in psychology, by the way, if you didn't know. Not that that means anything when it comes to applying for jobs. There's kind of different, they call them locuses of control. So like, you might think that everything is always someone else's fault, or you might think that everything is always your fault. And ideally you want to be somewhere in the middle, and sometimes things are other people's fault and sometimes they are your fault. But the kind of mindset that you take when it comes to difficult things like rejections affects how you cope with it. So if you're in a similar situation to me, have a look at where you think your locus of control is, and whether you're blaming everyone else or whether you're blaming yourself. And to be fair, neither of these are good. So if I come away from an interview and I've got my rejection email and I think it's all their fault, they're missing out on me, they are the ones that made the wrong decision, they should have hired me, that doesn't help me because I can't then improve and work on any feedback they've given me, because I'm thinking it's all their fault, it's not my fault at all. On the other hand, if I think it's all my fault, I'm a failure, I did this wrong, this just makes me feel rubbish. So trying to find a balance between the two is very difficult, and that is something that I am working on. So like I said, rejections hurt, but it also affects other areas of my life and other areas of my self-worth. So I tend to take quite an internal locus of control and think, I don't know, my mind just spins out of control and I end up with the resolution that I'm a failure and I'm never going to get a job, all this, if I don't catch it before my negative thoughts spiral. And this has affected other areas of my life because that negative self-talk pattern becomes more practiced and it becomes like a habit. So when something else goes wrong, like I miss my bus, I'll get into that same pattern of negative self-thoughts, like I am awful, I don't deserve to get on that bus, why does this always happen to me? It sounds absolutely ridiculous when you say it out loud, and that is actually one tip of catching yourself doing negative self-talk, is to try and say it out loud and see how ridiculous it sounds. But when you're saying it to yourself, inside, to your head, it just makes sense and you're like, well, yeah, I'm a failure. A very convoluted way of saying when something happens that spins you into negative self-talk, it becomes easier for this to happen in other areas of your life and affect other areas of your life. Another way that being unemployed can affect your self-esteem is just like what you do with yourself during the day. Like, you suddenly have a lot of free time, and I've made a video about this previously where I was like, I'm wasting my time. If you had all this free time all of a sudden, you would do all these amazing things with it. And this is kind of twofold. So firstly, I don't want to fall into the negative stereotype of an unemployed person who just sits on their ass all day. And so kind of fighting that stereotype drives me to make myself over busy and like have too much on and I'm stressed all the time because I'm trying desperately to not appear lazy. But then because I have all this stuff on and all my hobbies and my volunteering and trying to keep busy, I feel like I don't have as much time to apply for jobs. So I feel like I'm not trying hard enough to get a job. And again, this is another negative self-talk thing, thinking that I'm lazy and thinking that I'm not trying hard enough, when really I'm not lazy, I just sometimes need a break and I'm trying as hard as humanly possible. There is also when you try and ask for help. That is also not good for the self-love and the self-worth. So whether that is having to ask friends or family to borrow money or for some help, it can, especially for me, make me feel incredibly guilty. I hate asking for money and asking for help, but sometimes you need some help. Or whether this is asking the government for help and applying for benefits. And I've made a whole video about the wonder that is universal credit, which I will link up here for you. Oh, I had a nightmare, and that really affected my self-love and self-worth as well. Just going through that extra stress when you're already going through a lot of stress trying to find a job and trying to deal with your feelings around trying to find a job. Having extra stress put on you by the government is not helpful. I am going for a different benefit now. I'm going for new style job seekers, and so far it's been a lot better. Still haven't got a single penny off them, but we'll see. Fingers crossed. And then the icing on top of the cake is when you get a nice existential realization. So you'll be going about your daily life, cracking on, doing some self-love maybe, and then you just think, I have no job, I have no money, money is gonna run out soon, then what am I gonna do? I have been unemployed for 8 months, what the hell? Why can't I get a job? And sometimes this just hits me and I'm like, fantastic, there's all my self-worth out the window, come back please. And it can be an incredibly overwhelming feeling. I think that is one of the major kind of feelings of being unemployed, is being overwhelmed. They come hand in hand. So in order to practice some self-love and try and stop those negative talk spirals and catch myself when I have like an existential realization, is to do things that would soothe and fix that feeling of overwhelm. So this can be through doing a grounding meditation to stop you kind of spiraling out of control. This can be brain dumping a to-do list and writing down everything you need to do so it doesn't look like so much and it's all out of your head and on paper. Or there are tons of other techniques. I can make a separate video on how to deal with feeling overwhelmed if you're interested in that. But those are just a couple of things I like to do when it hits me all of a sudden how very unemployed I am. So one of the biggest things to remind yourself, and for me to remind myself, and this is not what you want to hear at all, but this is temporary, you will find something, your situation will improve. And I know right now it does not feel like it will, and it feels like it's going to be this way forever, but it will work out. And that phrase, oh, it'll work out, is like the one thing to never say to someone who's unemployed, but it will. Going against my own advice here, it will work out. From me to you, from you to me, it's all gonna work out, we're gonna be fine. If you are in a similar position, I've got your back, we're in this together, we are gonna get through this. And please subscribe to my channel if you want to see some of my other videos. I will see you in my next one, guys. Bye.